WWE has been part of many controversial angles in the past, some including their own superstars. From controversial storylines to characters and even some behind-the-scenes dealings, WWE has been dragged into a spotlight that the company would have rather avoided. For the most part, WWE likes to stay as far away from controversy as possible in order to keep their sponsors on side and ensure that the company doesn't lose any money. Of course, in order to do this, wrestlers who cause a scene have to be quickly removed from their roster. In recent years, there have been many controversial names that the company has parted ways with, some of whom have continued to cause issues long after their departure. Before we get into the video, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you get notified when we come back with another amazing video. 10. Zara Schreiber. Many members of the WWE Universe may have forgotten about Zara Schreiber or may not remember that she was once a wrestler in her own right, coming through the ranks in NXT. The former superstar was part of an online scandal that included Seth Rollins and former fiancée Leah Schultz back in 2015, which is when she rose to fame. This was the first time many fans heard of Schreiber, and once her relationship with Rollins had been put under a microscope, it wasn't long before the WWE Universe began digging into her background. Some historic Instagram posts which contained the Nazi swastika were found, and the company made the decision to cut its losses. At the time, Zara wasn't yet to make her official debut and had already become a controversial name, since she has moved on to work for Chris Jericho as a merch girl for his band Fozzy. 9. Lars Sullivan. Lars Sullivan was a character that could have gone on to reach the same heights as Kane if his career was handled differently. In NXT, the Freak was seen as an unstoppable force, but when he was promoted to the main roster, the pressure seemed to get to Sullivan, who was sent home before he could make his debut on Raw. This left the company with several options when it came to Sullivan's failure, and after a few months on the sidelines, he was reintroduced on the main roster before suffering an injury that sidelined him for a year. Sullivan later returned to SmackDown as part of the 2020 WWE Draft, but after just a handful of appearances, he left the company. WWE didn't even announce Sullivan's departure, instead deciding to allow him to walk away from the company quietly and failed to wish him the best in his future endeavors. 8. Velveteen Dream. Velveteen Dream was once known as Patrick Clark as a contestant on WWE Tough Enough back in 2015. Clark later transformed into Velveteen Dream and was seen as one of the stars who were the future of the company when he dominated NXT. In late 2020, this all came crashing down when he was named as one of the wrestlers in the Speaking Out movement. Unlike Riddle and Austin Theory, Dream was taken off WWE TV and wasn't able to make his return. Instead, the company opted to release Dream from his contract in May 2021, despite returning to NXT and competing in several matches. Despite being seen as one of developmental's hottest prospects a few years earlier, he was just another name in a long list of stars who were released in order to cut down on the company's budget following the COVID-19 pandemic. 7. Hulk Hogan. Unlike many of the stars on this list, Hogan's controversy came long after his active wrestling career had come to an end. As a star in the 1980s, Hogan was part of several interviews, and one of these came to light back in 2015 and caused WWE to distance itself from the Hall of Famer for the first time in his career. The racist comments made by him saw the company remove his Hall of Fame entry from their website and refused to mention him on TV for 3 years for fear of losing any of their sponsors or offending the WWE Universe. Hogan went on to apologize for the comments and was then welcomed back in 2018. Since then, the Immortal Star has been able to make sporadic appearances for the company once again and was most recently one of the hosts for WrestleMania 37. 6. Lio Rush. The controversy surrounding Lio Rush began early in his career when he made a joke about Emma's release on his Twitter account and then was the target of severe backlash in the WWE locker room. Rush was able to overcome this and allow his in-ring work to speak for him, which led to his promotion to the main roster. Rush became Bobby Lashley's hype man, but during this time on the main roster, there were rumors of backstage issues which resulted in Rush once again being sent back to NXT. While there, Rush became NXT Cruiserweight Champion, but was later released in 2020. Since his release, Rush has been outspoken about his issues with Mark Henry while contracted to WWE. But the two have seemingly put their issues behind them while now working together in AEW. 5. The Ultimate Warrior. Now a WWE Hall of Famer and the man behind the annual Warrior Award, WWE has done their best to create a legacy for a character who was one of the most controversial in the history of the company. Warrior's career was riddled with issues despite the fact that he was once seen as the company's next big megastar following Hulk Hogan. After being fired and rehired from the company several times, Warrior and WWE only fixed their relationship mere months before his death back in 2014. This was after Warrior was part of an infamous homophobic rant that alienated him from a big part of the WWE universe. Warrior was ostracized by WWE fans for several years, but the company chose to ignore the controversy that surrounded his career and honored him alongside his family every year at the WWE Hall of Fame. 4. Drake Wuritz. Known as Drake Younger throughout his career on the independent circuit, the star was signed by WWE and worked as a referee on NXT. Younger was a likable character and such a good official that at one point he was called up to the main roster and officiated the match between Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, Ronda Rousey, and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, Younger was one of the stars who was outspoken about some of the new restrictions and rules, and even walked out of a backstage meeting regarding their mask policy, which put a lot of heat on him with the NXT crew. The referee was also very outspoken regarding the QAnon conspiracy, which opened WWE up to a spotlight that they didn't want. This led to Younger being fired from WWE as part of the 2021 budget cuts. 3. Bill DeMott. While not technically a wrestler for WWE, Bill DeMott is a name that many members of the WWE universe will be familiar with, in reference to allegations about the former WWE star while he was part of the NXT setup. The former head coach at WWE's Performance Center was accused of abuse by many big names in the sport for a number of years before WWE decided to investigate. At the time, DeMott denied all of the allegations, but WWE was in a position where they were about to fire the star. But he instead resigned from his position in order to save face. His resignation also meant that he was able to walk away from the company without any sort of discipline or punishment for the years of abuse and bullying that he subjected many young trainees to. 2. Enzo Amore. Enzo Amore was once seen as one of the company's best stars on the mic. His promos were second to none, and he would entertain the WWE universe when he had a mic in his hand. While his partner Big Cass caused some issues backstage when it came to his political views, it was Amore who caused the most controversy. From being kicked off the WWE tour bus by Roman Reigns to being kicked out of the locker room, Amore wasn't well liked by the WWE roster and was then accused of sexual assault. When WWE heard about the allegations on the day of Raw 25, the company was obviously furious and were left with little choice but to suspend and then fire the star, since the company was kept in the dark about the criminal allegations. Amore then tried to hijack the Survivor Series event when he entered as a fan before being escorted out by security. While the allegations were later dropped due to lack of evidence, it's highly unlikely that Amore will ever be asked to make his return. 1. CM Punk. CM Punk left the company 7 years ago, but still there are chants for the star whenever the WWE universe gets bored during a live event. Punk opted to walk away from WWE back in 2014 following the Royal Rumble, before later being fired by WWE for breach of contract. Punk was fired on his wedding day and later went on to discuss all of his issues with the company publicly in a tell-all podcast with Colt Cabana. This was a podcast that Punk was later sued for after accusing WWE doctor Chris Amon of failing to diagnose a staph infection that could have killed him. Punk won the court battle a few years later. Punk has remained away from and has instead gone on to try his hand at MMA and acting. But recent rumors suggest that the star could be returning to the business, but this time for AEW. Which wrestlers do you think were the most controversial? Do you have any other names to add to the list? Let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching.